Everybody, thank you for watching, whoever's watching this right now. If you've watched my previous videos and have taken anything of substance, anything helpful from those recordings, appreciate it. Glad you came back. Glad to know that there's some value, there's some worth to some of these things that I'm sharing. That is, after all, what this is about. Me really just sharing something that I feel is valuable, that's helpful, something that I feel I can contribute with originality. Not that there's anything that you're going to hear that hasn't been said before, but again, where the originality lies at, where that rests at, is in the way that I explain things, or the way that I share or kind of dissect certain things, how they look to me, right? How they appear before my eyes. And if you haven't picked up a common theme in these videos, it's really about mindset. It's about outlook, right? Why do I see the world the way that I see it? What constitutes my thinking and how I draw conclusions? How do I go from point A to point B in my mind, as far as like going from here to there? And really, it's a lot of things that are, built into us, patterns, scripting that we've had growing up, just the way we were raised, a number of different things that factors into really how we see the world. And so just some of these things are lessons that I've learned, things that I've been interested in, as far as really looking at why I see things the way I see them. Ultimately, we don't want to just have a map, right? A paradigm. We don't want to just have a something to follow throughout this life, right? Like, just get me by, get me through. No, we want to have an accurate depiction of the landscape around us. And what that means mentally, what that means visually, what that means perception-wise, is that we're able to correctly determine what it is that we're actually seeing, okay? And that really, contributes to just a whole, array of things in our lives. It could be goal setting and goal accomplishing. It could be just, getting ourselves out of a negative mindset, or out of a mindset that's not healthy, getting us into a place where we can see perhaps what other people see in us. I think that can be a challenge as well. And so, just to pick up where we left off from last Monday's video was titled "A New Level of Thinking, Part 1. As a quick recap to that, I was explaining some things I actually read straight out of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, from page 43. And a quick rundown about that was, just two ways of thinking, inside out or outside in, right? Like, what approach will we use, right? What type of thinking do we have, as far as, making sure that we're addressing things that need to change, or addressing problems, or things that we see in front of us. Is this an inside out approach? Meaning, do I start with myself first? Right? So, for example, let's say I'm not getting the results that I want in my career search, or let's say I'm not getting the results that I want looking for a relationship, right? I mean, that's something that's common, right? Relationships are tough, and for some people, they've had, seemingly bad luck in their pursuits, right? So what do I do about that? Right? What do I do about that? What I've tried before. So one thing we might realize is, hey, what I've been trying before, or the attempts I've made to correct this, or to address this, or to get from this place to the next, have not necessarily worked. They've not gained the results that I would want. And so, where do I start? Now, again, going from outside in, inside out. The inside out approach is looking at myself, looking at my character, my motives. What's driving this? What's behind this? What am I really looking for? Right? And that's really a lot of, being honest with ourselves. Something that maybe on the surface doesn't seem like it should be that difficult, but it can be. And, for whatever reason, we all have either, some type of defense, or, we're just not really able to be that honest with ourselves. Perhaps it's tied into something deeper, something that's a little more, sensitive. It just a, we really don't want to ask ourselves the hard questions, right? And that's definitely understandable. I mean, this whole concept of developing our minds, of changing the way we think, I wouldn't say that everybody's automatically on board with that. I really do think that there are people who would rather stay the same, who would rather keep their way of thinking, their way of doing things, their way of drawing conclusions, and just, for whatever reason, it might not even be a bad reason. It might just be, what, I don't see that as necessary for growth, for living. And you know what? I wouldn't argue that it has anything to do with actually, like, living life. We can still go through life. You can still live. Quality of life, or what you accomplish, or what you're able to attain, I don't know. To me, it seems like if I want things that I don't yet have, whether they're material things or even greater than material things, if they're, things that are going to be helpful to me, beyond what I'm getting or giving, I think that I have to develop my mind to see things a little bit different. Because if I don't have what I'm looking for at the moment, I have to address the reason why. And so that's why I was calling it a new level of thinking, based off the book, some information that's in the book. And so, two approaches, right? Inside out. Inside out meaning, before I look at all the exterior factors in this situation, I got to look at myself first, right? What are my motives? How am I determining things? What's my character, right? And really, again, just a real hard self-reflection of ourselves first. Whereas the other end, the outside in approach, you're looking at, outside factors, external factors. Like, hey, I'm not getting these results because, A, B, C, right? My relationships haven't done very well because, these people don't understand me. Or, after a while, somebody just doesn't, they can't get on my same page, right? So it's the other person, right? Like, I'm doing my best, but the other person doesn't want to give that, that effort. Or, you know what, I would have a much better, I would have much more success in my career if I had, if I kissed butt a little bit more, or if I was a little more, buddy with the higher ups, or if I played that part. But since I don't, I don't get the, I don't get the opportunities that others get. Now, there can be some truth to that, right? It is true that when we're in a relationship, it's another person, there could be some difficulties there, okay? And there have been plenty of experiences in my own life where I've seen favoritism, where I've seen people that are, willing to get in close with the decision makers, and they kind of get the nod over somebody else that maybe, it had the right to that next opportunity, whether it be a raise, whether it be a promotion. I've seen it. So I'm not saying there's no truth to that, but what can you or I do about that, right? Like, I can't make that other person in my relationship think a certain way. I can't make my boss, or a work environment like that, I can't change it if that's how they're going to do things. The only thing I can control is myself, right? The only thing we can control is ourselves. So the second part of a new level of thinking, okay, I want to start with this quote from Albert Einstein. It says, "The significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them." So what does that mean? So two things to me that really points out. So when he says at the same level that we created them, that's assuming, when you say that, you're assuming some role, some type of responsibility in the results or in the outcome, okay? And he says, these problems can't be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them, okay? So again, circumstances, like the two examples I mentioned before, not all of those things are in our hands. Not all of those things are completely in our control, but there is part of that is in our control, right? So going forward, if I want to solve this problem, okay, if I want to solve and resolve this issue, whether it's, you know what, I need to see myself as an entrepreneur. I need to start seeing myself as somebody who's doing the things that I want to do, because right now the only way I can see myself or my present situation is how it's always been, right? So how am I going to solve this problem, right? That I had a part in creating. Now again, not to do the, you know, the blame game or beat ourselves up, but to recognize like, hey, you know what, there's something in my thinking, there's something in my approach that has not been correct. And in order for me to get past this point, I've got to correct that. And so how can we do that, right? What are some ways that we can do that? So the book, 7 Habits, it talks about habits, right? It talks about these habits that are fundamental in how we approach things, right? So any type of interruption of pattern, any type of disruption of the normal way that you do things is going to help us, you know, in the normal way that we do things, it's going to help us get to a new level of thinking, right? Because now we're trying a different approach. We're kind of like, in a way, experimenting with our schedule, or with our, you know, with our pattern, with our routine. All of us have routines. We all have habits. We all have things that we just do automatically. And, you know, they're ingrained in us. They're wired in us. And so making even the slightest adjustments can help us get to that new level of thinking. But one thing we know, according to what Einstein says here, if we want to solve this problem, right? If we want to get from point A to point B, if we want to get to this place or this space that we haven't yet been able to get to, it can't be reached with the same level of thinking that we have currently. There has to be a difference in thinking, in our approach. There has to be a difference in our mindset and our mentality. Some of the things that are helpful, again, even the smallest, even the slightest disruptions of our normal pattern, of our normal routine, can be beneficial. And again, it starts with that self-observation. Like, where am I at in all of this? What needs to be done on my end? What's my part in this? What's my role in this? And how can I adjust my thinking? How can I see this different? Because everything I've done up until this point, the way that I think, the way that I approach things, everything up till this point has gotten me these results, or has amounted to this or that. And, you know, like I said, this is a journey that I'm on myself, right? Trying to reach a different a point in my life, in my career, and what I'm doing, right? Bringing out the value, connecting with opportunities that that are afforded me from the things that I have to offer, from those things of value that I have to offer. And it's a totally different transition, and it looks completely different than any other season in my life. And so again, you know, getting there and actually getting to that point, actually living and carrying myself as that person, it's going to require a change of thinking. It's going to require a different type of mindset, a different type of approach. There's no way that I can attain the things that I want thinking the same way that I have up until this point. And so part of what's helpful to me in making these videos is knowing that I'm pouring these things out that I have in my mind, right, coming from my heart, things that I feel are genuine, things that I come with in sincerity, and helping other people. But even speaking these things and even putting these things on camera and recording these things, it's helping me get into a different frame of mind. It's helping me take on a different approach to how I would think and how I would approach things. It's helping me examine myself. It's forcing me to look at myself and say, okay, where in your character, where in your motives, where in your paradigm are the adjustments that need to be made? And how are you going to do that? How are you going to make those changes? How are you going to change that thinking? How are you going to arrive at a new level of thinking? See, all of this encompasses that. It's all in an effort to do that. And it's all helpful. And so I'm hoping that you'll be able to take the same things that I'm sharing. And again, if there's something that clicks, if there's something that sparks a thought and you know, again, even just to see something different, or maybe, you know what, I never thought of it that way. It's all good. It's whatever you can use and what can be used to be helpful. Okay. The one thing I need anybody that's watching these videos to understand is this is not something, I'm not some expert coming on here giving you my expertise. I'm just somebody that's here speaking these things, explaining these things that have been relevant and really sparked my curiosity and my interest in, you know, developing myself better and getting into a new level of thinking, a new way of seeing things. And so that's what it comes down to. And so again, we want to get to a different place. If we want to see a different outcome, if we want to be able to approach something differently, then we've got to get to a new level of thinking. It can't be the same level of thinking that we were in when we created the problem, right? And again, it's not to say it's all our fault, but there is a level of responsibility that we need to take in order to make things different. So that's what I have to share today. See you guys next week.